So, Assalamualaikum and good evening, sir. Today we will present about assignment 3. We have Nia Ahmad Faris here, Ifan Fitri, Muhammad Rifki, and Nurdania Sofia. So, first question, uh, the computer hardware functions such as input and output and memory allocation. The operating system acts an intermediary between application programs and the computer hardware. Explain briefly how operating system manages computer hardware. An operating system is an interface between a computer user and computer hardware. An operating system is a software which performs all the basic tasks like file management, memory management, process management, handling input and output, and controlling peripheral devices such as disk drives and printers. It is also a program that acts as an interface between the user and the computer hardware and controls the execution of all kinds of programs. For example, device management. For example, device management. An operating system manages device communication via their respective drivers. It keeps track of all that devices. Programs responsible for his task is known as the I/O controller. It also decides which process gets the device, when and for how much time, and allocates the device in the efficient way. Next, the processor management. An operating system does keeps track of processor and status of process. The program responsible for the task is known as traffic controller. It also allocates the processor, CPU, to a process and deallocates a processor when a process is no longer required. So next question, when you turn on the power to a PC, CPU begins to boot by initializing itself and then turning to the ROM BIOS for instructions. Sort out the steps involved in this process. When the computer's power is first turned on, firstly the CPU will initialize itself, which is triggered by a series of clock ticks generated by the system clock. Part of the CPU's initialization is to look to the system's ROM BIOS for its first instruction in the startup program. The ROM BIOS stores the first instruction, which is the instruction to run the power on self-test, which is post. Post begins by checking the ROM BIOS chip and then tests CMOS RAM. If the post does not detect a battery failure, it then continues to initialize the CPU, checking the inventory hardware devices, secondary storage devices such as hard drives and floppy drives. So that is all from me. Next person.
Okay, so for the question 3, the question asks the computing phase phrase interrupt request IRQ is used to refer to either the act of interrupting the bus lines used to signal an interrupt or the interrupt input lines on a programmable interrupt controller PIC. The interrupt request level is the priority of an interrupt request. It asks identify any 5 IRQ number and its related devices. So there are 16 IRQs including the 01. So the system timer and all IRQs above 15 are known as virtual IRQ and are handled by both the operating system and the APIC. The 5 IRQs in between the 16 IRQs are 01, which is the keyboard, 02, the cascade controller, second PIC, 03 is for the COM2 and 4, 04 is for COM1 and 3, while 05 is for the sound parallel port 3, port 2.
Moving on to question 4, the question asks, motherboard is the real workhorse of the system which consists of CPU, random access memory, which is RAM, power supply, hard drive, and all other pieces of typical PC. List out any 5 questions before selecting a motherboard. All right, the first question that we need to determine before choosing a motherboard is first to determine the form factor of a motherboard that we will be using. This is because motherboards typically comes in different kinds and sizes, so we need to determine the perfect one that we will be using in order to fit in our personal computer case. Secondly, the CPU socket needs to fit the requirement that needed for the computer, and the CPU socket comes in various sizes. This is because our central processing unit typically comes in different kinds and sizes, and usually different motherboards serves different processors. As an example, Intel Xeon works only for motherboards that is in a huge form factors. Thirdly, the chipsets where they allow certain numbers of features to work, where the latest features usually refreshes in the latest chipsets. Fourth, having integrated add-ons such as having wireless networking or Bluetooth, because it will save time if we want to add it later with an expansion card. All right, I will give an example for this point. As an example, Wi-Fi cards. We need Wi-Fi cards installed in our motherboard in order to have access to Wi-Fi or internet connection. That's the most basic example. Lastly, we have to look at the brand also, because there are various manufacturers that have great aftermarket service and their history of producing motherboards. In some cases, some manufacturers offer different kinds of warranty for their motherboards or other computer parts. So we need to determine the best manufacturer that can serve the best warranty for us in case we run into any kinds of problems later on after our purchase. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, for question number 5, hard disk works on the following technologies. Technology used within the hard drive to read and write data to the drive, and the second one, the technology used by the hard drive to interface with the system. Explain with a diagram the principle and working of a hard drive. Okay, for the first one, technology used within the hard drive and to read and write data to drive. Okay. When your machine saves data on its hard drive, it isn't just throwing magnetized nail into a box and jumbling them up. On its later, the data is processed in a very organized fashion. A thread are concentric circular path in which bits of data are organized. Each thread is a divide into smaller sections known as sectors. When the machine has to store a new data, it look at the map to see if there are any empty sector. The read writer is then instructed to shift across the platter to precise position where the data is to be stored. The same method is used to read data in reverse. Okay. How does a computer control all the technical nitty-gritty in a hard drive? A controller server as an interface between them. It's a small circuit that controls the actuators, selects separate tracks for reading and writing, and transfer streams from the device into a serial data stream being written to the disk. Controllers are either integrated into the disk drive circuits board or are a component of the computer's main board. A hard drive is an amazing piece of engineering because it can hold so much information in such a small amount of space. This has advantages as well as a disadvantages. One of them is the hard drive will fail if they are exposed to the dirt or dust. A speck of dust may cause the read-write head to bounce up and down, colliding with the platter and damaging its magnetic content. This is known as a disk crash, and it can result in the loss of all data on a hard drive. Okay, the second one is technology used by the hard drive to interface with the system. Hard drive is an optical drive are built with various interfaces that allow the drive to be connected to a device. When you mount a storage drive in a computer, the drive communication interface must watch the controller on the motherboard, or some common drive interfaces are integrated drive electronics, also known as advanced technology attachment. It's a pioneering drive controller interface that link computer and hard drive. Okay, moving on.
So for part B, the question, it says, assume that you have been assigned to propose setting up the computer system for an organization of a capacity of 40 staff members. The organization is located on a two-story building. You have been asked to set up, configure the network, purchase all the hardware and software, etc. for the organization. Your proposal should be complete. Okay, so for the proposal first overview, we have been assigned by the organization the same thing like the question. Then for the objective of this new system is as follow, which are providing a new computer system for 40 staff members, establishing a suitable and comfortable system that can assist staffs with their jobs, and provide lasting system with no problems for staffs to work with. Then for the solution and approach, provided that our organization is located in a two-story building, we plan to place 20 computers at the ground floor while the other 20 computers at the top floor. The new computer system will be consisting 40 desktop from Dell that is exclusively for office use powered by Intel Core processors. Second, multi-use Windows 10 Enterprise operating system. Thirdly, internet system that uses Ethernet port for connection. Then for the financials, we request a maximum of 200,000 of budget. It includes of Dell small form factor business desktops times 40. Second, Windows 10 Enterprise operating system that includes Microsoft 365 or 365. And thirdly, internet subscription. So that's all.
So that is all for our presentation today. Thank you.